Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Estrella Boyd, and on behalf of the organization, I was invited here today to discuss why having a trauma informed school is relevant for the community and our students. Now, it may come as a surprise to many of you. However, childhood trauma occurs more than we may think. More than two-thirds of children reported at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. At least 1 in 7 children have experienced a child abuse and or neglect in the past year. In 2019, 1,440 children, died of abuse and neglect in our country. Each day, more than 1,000 youth are treated in emergency departments for physical assault related injuries. In 2019, about 1 in 5 school students reported being bullied on school property in the last year. 8% of high school students had been in a physical fight on school property one or more times during a 12-month period. Each day, about 14 youth die from homicide, and more than 1,300 are treated in emergency departments for violence related injuries. Now, why do these statistics matter? I only mention them to show you all how trauma can negatively impact our youth. Are any of you familiar with ACEs? Meaning, so ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And these are traumatic events that happens in a person's childhood. These experiences can be emotional, they can be physical, or even sexual. ACEs can change your brain development. They can affect how the body responds to stress. It can interfere with a person's health, the opportunities, stability throughout one's life. It even has the potential to affect future generations. Now, you may ask, how does trauma affect our students? Well, students who have experienced traumatic events, they tend to have lower test grades and standardized test scores due to the lack of concentration or ability to sit still. Just imagine a child dealing with the loss of a loved one, or if they had just came to school after being sexually assaulted. Could you imagine that student, maybe if the teacher's talking, them sitting there and being able to actually comprehend what's going on when their body or their mind is undergoing what just happened? This is why these students usually lack concentration, and in turn, they end up not doing so well in their classes or testing well on tests. They have higher rates of absences and they drop out of school due to school avoidance. Sometimes a lot of them feel, when something traumatic happens to us, what do we usually want to do? We want to isolate, right? We don't want to be around people. So they tend to they stay home, or maybe even just draw away from home and school altogether just because of that traumatic event. They tend to be placed in special education or disciplinary programs due to struggles with reading or disruptive and attentive behavior. They have difficulty with attention, they have difficulty with memory and language development, and overall, just disengagement towards learning. So, the question is, why advocate for a trauma informed school? Well, there's many reasons. One, they promote learning about and understanding the whole student, which can increase positive academic outcomes. Just imagine being able to understand why a student is coming to school and they're isolated, or they've shut down. um they're not present. They're physically there, but they're not mentally there. having a trauma informed school may help you understand the student. We might be able to teach them based off of what we know what's going on at home or around the home or even in school. So that's why it will promote in better grades, better test scores. They'll have a positive, more positive academic scores. They provide a positive learning environment where students can engage and educators can provide support for students who encounter traumatic events. So, of course, if we can implement a trauma informed school, we're already creating that environment where kids feel safe. They know that they can come and they can talk to us and we're supportive of them. They make sure that students receive the behavioral and mental health services they need. So, not just having students come to school just for specifically, learning, but also to receive some maybe counseling. Like, we have counselors in school. So, having a little bit more of that face to face, one to one interaction with the students. That way, they can put aside their issues or get help working through those issues and being able to, you know, use what they're learning in these sessions with our educators to better cope and manage their stressors while they're in school. They adjust disciplinary and other policies to evaluate students' sense of safety and support. They help students overcome the negative effects of trauma and reach educational success. So, overall, being able to, like I mentioned before, cope, manage with these experiences, that way they perform well academically. They build positive and safe relationships where students are done no further harm and where they can thrive in an encouraging learning community. They de escalate conflicts and negative situations. They help children deal with trauma, of course, and regardless of where that happens, whether it's in school or outside of school, wherever that is, it will help them deal with it. And then most importantly, they allow us as educators, as supporters, as a system, as an organization to understand that all of us are the sum of our experiences. So now, what are some of the steps we can take in implementing this trauma informed school? Well, first and foremost, we can weave trauma informed approaches in school with things like strategic planning by administrators, approving the trauma informed policies, staff training, so making sure everyone's up to date with the trauma informed policies and so forth, direct intervention with the traumatized students, building knowledge and communication in variety of domains. We can identify and assess the traumatic stress. We can address and treat the traumatic stress. We can educate others on trauma and awareness. We can build partnerships with students and families, um, practice mindfulness, challenge thoughts, and most importantly, just seek support from others. It's important that we know that we cannot implement this type of system without all hands on deck. It takes an entire team to ensure that this is done correctly. Now, when implementing a trauma informed school, I like to keep in mind the six principles of trauma informed care. These are safety, trustworthiness, and transparency, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, empowerment and choice, and cultural issues. These six principles serve as a framework for how we can work to reduce the likelihood of retraumatization. So, they will ensure there is physical and emotional safety. So, this means, of course, making sure that every student feels safe in the environment that they're in, whether that be emotionally or physically. Ensuring that each individual know they have control and choice in their care, so not feeling like they have to do something, that they feel like they have a choice in whether they want to, go with the care or not. helping others make decisions, building trust is a big one by ensuring professional boundaries are maintained, and providing an atmosphere that allows students to feel validated and affirmed with each and every person in the organization. Now, with all that being said, now that I've covered, um, the what steps we can take for implementing a trauma informed school or why advocate for a trauma informed school, I would like to leave you all with this. So, trauma is a risk factor for nearly all behavioral health and substance use disorders. There's hope. Children can and they do recover from traumatic events, and we all can play an important role in their recovery. A critical part of children's recovery is having a supportive caregiving system, access to effective treatments, and service systems that are trauma informed. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and I will now leave the floor open for you all for discussion or questions, any questions, comments, or concern. I will leave it up to you guys. Thank you again.